Will Smith adjusted his designer suit as he stepped into Elite Airways, Manhattan's most prestigious private jet showroom. The marble floors gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers, reflecting the opulence that surrounded him. As a Hollywood icon and successful businessman, he was accustomed to exclusive environments, but something felt different about this particular afternoon. The showroom manager, Charles Preston, stood near the entrance, his perfectly tailored suit matching his rigid posture. As Will approached, Preston's eyes flickered over him briefly before deliberately turning his attention to a wealthy-looking couple who had just entered. The dismissal was subtle but unmistakable. Sarah Chen, a young sales associate, noticed the interaction from her position near the digital displays. She took a step forward, clearly intending to greet Will, but Preston's sharp glance in her direction made her hesitate. She retreated to her station, though her discomfort was evident in her rigid posture and concerned expression. Will maintained his composure, approaching one of the holographic displays showcasing their latest model, the Celestial 3000. As he examined the specifications, he could feel the security guard shadowing his movements, maintaining a careful distance that suggested suspicion rather than protection. "Excuse me," Will said politely, addressing Preston. "I'm interested in learning more about the customization options for this model." Preston's response came with a barely concealed smirk. "These particular aircraft are reserved for serious buyers." His emphasis on the last two words carried clear implications. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at our sister location downtown?" The tension in the room thickened as other customers began to notice the exchange. A well-dressed man in his 50s approached Preston, speaking just loud enough to be heard. "Charles, surely you're not wasting time with someone who's clearly just window shopping." Will remained steady, his years of experience in navigating difficult situations evident in his measured response. He reached for his phone, pulled up his banking app, and displayed a screen showing a balance that could purchase the entire showroom several times over. Preston glanced at it dismissively, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed his features. "Some people do enjoy making impressions," Preston remarked dryly, turning away. But before he could complete his dismissal, the showroom's entrance doors opened again. Marcus Thompson, the company's regional director, burst through the doors, his face changing from hurried to shocked as he recognized Will. Sarah, who had been watching the scene unfold, allowed herself a small smile. Unknown to Preston, she had sent a quick message to corporate headquarters the moment she witnessed the discriminatory treatment. Will's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes held a quiet determination. He had entered the showroom intending to purchase a jet, but now he saw an opportunity to address something far more significant than a business transaction. As Marcus Thompson approached with profuse apologies forming on his lips, Will knew this afternoon would become about much more than buying an aircraft. It would become a lesson about respect, dignity, and the true measure of a person's worth. If this story has caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. Marcus Thompson's arrival at Elite Airways changed the atmosphere instantly. The regional director's presence sent ripples through the showroom as he approached Will Smith with the deference the actor and businessman deserved. Preston, the manager, watched the interaction with growing unease, his previous confidence crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. "Mr. Smith," Marcus began, extending his hand, "I cannot express how honored we are to have you here. Please allow me to personally oversee your visit." His eyes darted nervously to Preston, who had begun to pale visibly. Will raised his hand slightly, maintaining the same calm demeanor he'd shown throughout the ordeal. "Actually, Marcus, I'd prefer if Sarah handled my purchase." He gestured toward the young sales associate who had attempted to help him earlier. "She seems to understand something about character that others here might have forgotten." Sarah stepped forward, her professional demeanor masking her surprise. As she approached, Will noticed Preston attempting to interject, but Marcus silenced him with a sharp look. The other customers in the showroom had stopped pretending to examine aircraft models and were now openly watching the scene unfold. "Of course, Mr. Smith," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the pressure of the moment. "I'd be happy to show you our Celestial 3000 collection. We have several customization options that I believe would suit your needs perfectly." As Sarah led Will toward the private consultation area, he could hear Marcus beginning a heated but hushed conversation with Preston. The security guard who had been following Will earlier now stood awkwardly by the entrance, studying the floor with sudden intense interest. "You know, Sarah," Will said as they settled into the plush leather chairs of the consultation room, "I've been in this industry long enough to recognize talent when I see it. Your integrity today spoke volumes." Sarah pulled up the holographic display of the jet specifications, her hands steady despite her emotion. "Thank you, Mr. Smith. I couldn't stand by and watch that happen. It wasn't right." "Call me Will," he replied, leaning forward to examine the display. "And you're absolutely right. It wasn't. But sometimes the best way to handle discrimination isn't with anger. It's with dignity and strategic action." As they discussed the various features of the aircraft, Will shared stories from his own experiences in Hollywood. Moments when he had faced similar prejudices despite his fame and success. Sarah listened intently, understanding that this interaction was becoming about much more than a simple sales transaction. Through the glass walls of the consultation room, they could see other executives arriving, their faces grave as they huddled with Marcus. Preston had been escorted to his office, his usual swagger replaced by a defeated slouch. The wealthy couple who had been prioritized over Will earlier now looked thoroughly embarrassed, avoiding eye contact with anyone in the showroom. "You know," Will said, pausing in his examination of the jet's interior designs, "I believe everything happens for a reason. Today wasn't just about buying a jet. It was about setting an example." He smiled warmly at Sarah. "And maybe about recognizing someone who's destined for greater things." Sarah returned his smile, understanding the weight of his words. As she pulled up the customization options for the Celestial 3000, she realized that this day would mark a turning point in her career. Not because she was selling a jet to Will Smith, but because she had stood up for what was right when it mattered most. The news of Will Smith's experience at Elite Airways spread through the company like wildfire. Within hours, the corporate headquarters was buzzing with activity as executives scrambled to address the situation. Sarah's phone hadn't stopped vibrating with messages from colleagues and supervisors, but she remained focused on providing Will with the exceptional service he deserved. "These cabin configurations are impressive," Will commented, examining the holographic display. "But I'm more impressed by how you've handled yourself today, Sarah. Tell me, where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Sarah paused, considering her answer carefully. "Honestly, Mr. Smith, Will, I've always dreamed of revolutionizing the luxury aviation industry. Not just the technology, but the culture. Today showed me exactly why that's necessary." Will nodded thoughtfully, his eyes showing a glimpse of recognition. "You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, even when it seemed impossible." As they continued discussing the jet's specifications, Marcus Thompson re-entered the consultation room, accompanied by Elena Rodriguez, the company's chief operations officer who had just flown in from headquarters. Their presence added another layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. "Mr. Smith," Elena began, her voice carrying both authority and genuine concern, "I want to personally assure you that what happened today does not reflect our company's values. We're implementing immediate changes, starting with a complete overhaul of our training programs." Will turned to face her, his expression measured. "Ms. Rodriguez, I appreciate your quick response. But rather than focusing on damage control, I have a different proposition. He gestured toward Sarah. You have exceptional talent right here that's being underutilized. Eleanor's eyebrows raised slightly as she looked at Sarah with newfound interest. Meanwhile, through the glass walls, they could see Preston being escorted out of the building, carrying a box of personal items. The other employees watched in silence, the message clear. Discrimination would no longer be tolerated. Sarah, Will continued, I'm not just here to buy a jet. I'm always looking for investment opportunities, particularly in businesses that align with my values. Elite Airways has potential, but it needs fresh perspectives. He turned to Elena. What if we discussed a partnership? One that would create opportunities for promising talents like Sarah to reshape the industry. The room fell silent as the weight of Will's words sank in. Elena's expression shifted from surprise to intrigue, while Marcus looked like he could hardly believe what he was hearing. Sarah sat perfectly still, her mind racing with the implications of this unexpected turn of events. You see, Will explained, leaning back in his chair, sometimes the biggest changes come from the most unexpected moments. What happened today was unfortunate, but it's also an opportunity. An opportunity to show the world that success isn't about the color of your skin or your background. It's about character, vision, and the courage to stand up for what's right. Sarah watched as Will pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Jerry, he said to someone on the other end, remember that aviation investment we discussed? I think I've found something even better. How quickly can you get the paperwork ready? He listened for a moment, then smiled. Perfect. And make sure to include a provision about new leadership development programs. As Will ended the call, Eleanor and Marcus exchanged glances, realizing that this day was about to become a turning point, not just for their company, but for the entire industry. Through the glass walls, they could see the remaining employees gathering, whispers spreading as they sensed the magnitude of what was unfolding in the consultation room. 3 weeks had passed since the incident at Elite Airways, and the company's headquarters was hardly recognizable. Will Smith's involvement had catalyzed a complete transformation, with Sarah Chen now leading a newly created division focused on customer experience and inclusive business practices. The story had spread throughout the luxury aviation industry, making waves that reached far beyond the original showroom. Will sat in the renovated conference room, reviewing the latest proposals with Sarah and Elena. The room's sleek design reflected the company's new direction, modern, transparent, and welcoming. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, they could see construction crews working on the showroom's remodel, replacing the old aesthetic with something more inviting and less intimidating. The numbers are impressive, Will noted, scrolling through the digital presentation. Sales are up 40% since we announced the changes, and employee satisfaction has increased significantly. He turned to Sarah, who was confidently presenting the new training protocol she had developed. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued, Sarah explained, her newfound authority evident in her posture. We're not just selling luxury aircraft, we're setting a new standard for the industry. Elena nodded approvingly. The other executives were skeptical at first, but these results speak for themselves. Will, your investment has transformed more than just our bottom line. As they discussed the upcoming launch of their new customer service initiative, Jerry Thompson, Will's business manager, entered the room with an urgent expression. Will, you need to see this. He projected a news article onto the main screen. Former Elite Airways manager launches rival company, claims discrimination. The room fell silent as they read the headline. Preston, the former manager who had discriminated against Will, had secured backing from some old-school industry players who were resistant to change. They were positioning themselves as the traditional choice for luxury aviation. Will's response surprised everyone. Instead of showing concern, he smiled. You know what this means? He asked, looking around the room. We're making real change. When the old guard pushes back, it means they're feeling threatened by progress. Sarah straightened in her chair, a determined look in her eyes. They're underestimating us. They think this is just about one incident, but it's about reshaping an entire industry's culture. Exactly, Will agreed, standing to face the team. And that's why we're going to respond not with words, but with action. He pulled up another screen, revealing plans for a nationwide expansion. We're going to open new showrooms in every major city, each one staffed with diverse teams and led by people who understand the importance of respect and dignity. Eleanor's eyes widened as she reviewed the expansion plans. This is ambitious, even for us. The logistics alone are completely manageable, Sarah interjected, already pulling up preliminary staffing plans she had been working on. I've been developing a training program that can be scaled nationwide. We can leverage our success here as a model. Will watched with pride as Sarah commanded the room's attention, her confidence and expertise shining through. She had grown from a sales associate into a true leader in just 3 weeks, proving that talent only needs the right opportunity to flourish. There's something else, Jerry added, changing the display to show social media metrics. The public response to our changes has been overwhelming. Celebrities, business leaders, and influencers are asking to be part of this movement. They don't just want to buy jets, they want to be associated with what we're building here. As the team dove into planning mode, Will took a moment to observe. The energy in the room was electric, with ideas flowing freely and everyone contributing regardless of their position. This was exactly what he had envisioned when he decided to turn an uncomfortable incident into an opportunity for meaningful change. The luxury aviation industry's biggest trade show, held annually in Dubai, was approaching, and Elite Airways was preparing to unveil its revolutionary new business model. Will Smith stood in the newly redesigned Manhattan showroom, watching as Sarah rehearsed her keynote presentation. The confidence she exhibited now was a far cry from the hesitant sales associate she'd been just months ago. Remember, Will advised, they're not just coming to see new aircraft. They're coming to witness a revolution in how this industry operates. He paused, noting how Sarah's presentation seamlessly integrated statistics with personal stories of transformation. The door burst open as Elena rushed in, her tablet displaying breaking news. "We have a situation," she announced, her voice tense. Preston's new company, Heritage Aviation, just announced a partnership with 3 of the largest traditional dealers in Europe. They're launching their campaign the day before our presentation in Dubai. Sarah's hands tightened around her tablet, but her voice remained steady. "What's their angle?" Eleanor swiped through the press release. "They're positioning themselves as the guardians of luxury aviation tradition. Their tagline is, 'Where heritage meets excellence.' They're clearly trying to appeal to clients who might be resistant to our changes." Will absorbed the information, his expression thoughtful. "They're afraid," he said finally. "This isn't just about business anymore. It's about protecting a system that has benefited a select few for generations." "But that's not the worst part," Elena continued, pulling up another screen. "They've somehow acquired our customer database. They're reaching out to our highest value clients, offering exclusive memberships to their Heritage Circle, with significant discounts and privileges." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their entire Dubai launch strategy could be compromised if their key clients were poached beforehand. Sarah began pacing, her mind clearly racing with possibilities. "Wait," she said suddenly, stopping mid-stride. "What if we're looking at this the wrong way? What if this is actually our perfect opportunity?" Will leaned forward, intrigued. "Go on." "We've been focusing on showing how we're different from the old way of doing things," Sarah explained, her excitement building. "But what if we could demonstrate it live, in front of the entire industry?" She quickly pulled up the trade show schedule on the main display. "Look, Heritage Aviation is scheduled to present their traditional model at 10 a.m. We're at 2 p.m. What if, instead of just presenting our vision, we show real results? Will's eyes lit up as he caught onto her idea. You want to turn this into a direct comparison? Exactly, Sarah nodded, her fingers flying over the keyboard. We've been collecting data on our new approach: customer satisfaction scores, sales figures, diversity metrics. But more importantly, we have stories. Real stories of how our inclusive approach has actually improved the luxury experience for everyone. Elena, who had been quietly observing, straightened up. And I think I know how we can make it even more powerful. Remember those client outreach calls Heritage has been making? Several of them have actually contacted us, expressing concern about their aggressive tactics. Will smiled, recognizing the perfect setup for their counterplay. So we don't just tell our story, we let our clients tell it for us. Sarah was already modifying her presentation, her earlier nervousness completely forgotten. We can create a real-time comparison. While they're talking about preserving tradition, we'll show how innovation and inclusion have actually enhanced the luxury experience. As they worked late into the night refining their strategy, Will received an unexpected call. His expression changed as he listened, and when he hung up, he turned to the team with a mix of concern and determination. The Dubai International Aviation Exhibition Center buzzed with anticipation. The morning session had just concluded, where Preston and Heritage Aviation had presented their traditional values approach to luxury aviation. Their presentation had been polished, filled with glossy images of exclusive lounges and promises of maintaining the industry's highest standards. Will Smith sat in the front row, watching as Sarah prepared to take the stage. The past 24 hours had been intense after they'd received an unexpected call from Marcus Thompson, their former regional director. He had revealed that Preston's company had not only stolen their client database, but was also planning to announce a merger with one of the largest aviation conglomerates in the world. Ready? Will asked Sarah quietly as she adjusted her microphone. More than ever, she replied with quiet confidence. Sometimes the biggest moments come from the greatest challenges. The lights dimmed, and Sarah took the stage. The massive screen behind her came to life, but instead of showing typical corporate presentations, it displayed a live feed of Elite Airways' new showrooms across the world. In each location, diverse teams of employees stood ready alongside some of their most valued clients. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah began, her voice clear and strong. We're not here today to tell you about tradition. We're here to show you the future. She gestured to the screen. What you're seeing is happening right now, in real time across our global network. The audience murmured as they recognized several prominent figures in the various locations. Will smiled, knowing what was coming. Over the past 24 hours, they had mobilized their entire network, creating something unprecedented in the industry. For too long, Sarah continued, luxury has been defined by exclusion, but true luxury isn't about keeping people out, it's about raising everyone up. She clicked her remote, and the screen filled with data showing Elite Airways' remarkable growth since their transformation. From his seat in the audience, Preston shifted uncomfortably as Sarah began sharing client testimonials, including several from prominent figures who had rejected Heritage Aviation's aggressive recruitment attempts. But the real surprise came when Sarah introduced their new global initiative. Today, we're not just announcing changes to our company, she revealed. We're launching the Elite Airways Foundation for Aviation Innovation and Inclusion. And I'm honored to announce that our first partnership is with the Will Smith Foundation, creating a $100 million fund for aviation education and career development for underrepresented communities. The audience erupted in applause as Will joined Sarah on stage. Preston and his Heritage Aviation partners began to look increasingly uncomfortable as more announcements followed. Partnerships with major tech companies, sustainability initiatives, and a revolutionary apprenticeship program. But perhaps the most important announcement, Will said, taking the microphone, is about leadership. He turned to Sarah. Starting today, Sarah Chen will be taking on the role of Global CEO for Elite Airways. The surprise announcement sent waves through the audience. Sarah's journey from sales associate to CEO in such a short time was unprecedented, but her masterful handling of the presentation had already proven her capabilities. Leadership isn't about preserving the past, Sarah said, accepting the role with grace. It's about creating a future where everyone has the opportunity to soar. She paused, looking directly at Preston in the audience. And yes, that means everyone, even those who once doubted us. The standing ovation that followed lasted for several minutes. As Will and Sarah stood together on stage, they could see Preston and his partners quietly leaving the auditorium. Their traditional approach had been thoroughly overshadowed by Elite's vision of inclusive luxury. After the presentation, as congratulations poured in from around the world, Will pulled Sarah aside. "You know," he said with a smile, "sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising higher than anyone thought possible." Sarah nodded, looking out at the crowd of industry leaders now eager to partner with Elite Airways. "And we're just getting started," she replied, her eyes bright with determination and hope for the future they were creating.